Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming. My name is Alex, and I'm a senior educational consultant in Blackboard, and I've been here for about 3.5 years. And so my role is specifically actually taking clients through implementations and training, and also a lot of other types of educational-based consulting services. And so yesterday, you might have heard there was a e-teacher program talk that I gave as well, so that's something that, as an educational consultant, we deliver. And so I'm here with my colleague, Michael Garner, and we're going to be talking about, basically discussing the points about, are you ready for Ultra? We'll go through, what is Ultra, who's it designed for, some of the functional and technical considerations that we've actually moved through when we're working with clients, and specifically we'll provide also 2 case studies, both of which from within region, about their particular plan and also transition to Learn Ultra as well.
Hi everyone. As Alex said, I'm Michael Garner, Solutions Engineer for APAC, and I know a lot of the faces in the room here, so I won't talk a lot about what I do. This session, we'll get through the content fairly quickly because I really think the value is sort of question time at the end there and engaging with you guys and finding out what your concerns are about adopting Ultra. And really getting into that sort of question of, are you ready for Ultra? Because we believe that Ultra is ready. So it's more of a case of, are you ready for it? So we'll go through, Alex went through the agenda, what we'll sort of cover off on. We do really want to dive into the case studies and how Alex has helped a number of clients. But really, what is Ultra? Ultra is a very persona-based user interface. It's all about surfacing information for students, for users, where and being able to take action on those particular nuggets of information that appear to them for all their courses across the system there.
So I suppose many of you have already found out a little bit more about Ultra from this morning's presentation. And what I wanted to bring to the table is a little bit more about my own personal experiences, because I used to be an academic. And so a lot of these key workflows and how it's streamlined is essential for me to not lose track in my logic in trying to actually manage my students' learning rather than thinking about the things that I just have to do. So for Ultra, what I found when I was working with a lot of academics around the Asia Pacific region was that many of them have actually made the comment that it actually is quite intuitive, not just from where I can find information, but more about where exactly do I need to do, what exactly do I need to do next. And also, at a single glance, they will be able to kind of really see a lot of the items that they have to do prioritized by time for them. And so at a single glance, they can immediately see, okay, which are the items that I have to actually do first. And then it actually then flows on quite intuitively into the next task that I have to focus on. So personally, I felt that I no longer had to kind of zoom out and zoom back into, okay, what is logically what I have to do, and then what is the next thing I have to do. It's much more streamlined in that perspective, and it makes the whole experience a lot more comfortable to use as well, especially for those who may not have had a lot of experience with using LMSs. This particularly was highlighted in some of our Asian clients, which their educational technology maturity level may not be as high in the ANZ region as well. And for them, this was particularly useful and particularly valuable. Yeah. So for example, just by looking at the grade center, sometimes a lot of the issues were actually finding out exactly how many assignments were actually submitted, how many tests were done, and so on. So in particular, the Grade Center was actually something that received a lot of attention from a lot of the clients that we worked with. And so you can see just from a quick glance, you can actually get a pulse check, a bit of a temperature scale on how everyone is actually doing. And you can then prioritize and think about, okay, what is the next step that I should actually focus on? How should I contact my students and so on? So this particular type of focus for Ultra is what really drives, I think, the academics for them to actually adopt, simply because of the fact it saves a lot of time and it saves them a lot of kind of active thinking without actually putting in too much effort into planning the next stage. And so last but not least, of course, our new generation of mobile users, they're going to be expecting a lot from this. And so the Ultra experience is designed to streamline with that. And so a lot of the times you'll be able to see that for the mobile device, it's a lot more personalized. So again, students and instructors, they will actually get a lot of notifications associated with what they have to do. The actual navigational menu is extremely intuitive as well, which aligns with the web-based. And also, the activity stream is really the central place for all of the users to find out what they have to do next. So all in all, it's a much more simplified user experience for a lot of our users. And in order to leverage that, there has been quite a few discussions about who exactly is it designed for, because we do get a lot of questions about, okay, is it actually designed for a particular cohort of academics? Is it designed for another particular cohort with other experiences of academics? But I think in reality, it's designed for all users, but more specifically, it's specifically valuable to those who seek to actually want to reduce the barriers to adopting educational technologies. And we've actually seen that quite frequently around the Asia-Pacific region as well. And so from my background is more on the functional side, so I resonate with a lot of the academics themselves and basically looking at how to improve their use of the learning management systems in place in order to extract as much value for them as possible. And on top of that, I also look at a lot of the business operations side of things as well. So there are elements of transitioning or adopting in specifically Learn Ultra from a business ops perspective that you have to consider as well. And this is by no means an exhaustive list. It is simply one of those bigger ticket items that we commonly see. So obviously, Learn Ultra, one of the key changes is the culture of what you perceive as the LMS. It is much more user-centric approach rather than more of a platform that's passive. So in that sense, the culture of actually using the LMS and the expectations on it, oddly speaking, it actually doesn't surface until probably after you've adopted. You wouldn't expect questions coming from users at the very beginning planning stages. It's really after you've actually deployed, then you realize some students will say, oh, where would I find this particular document? It used to be in these areas. And you just kind of don't realize that kind of reliance on muscle memory and just habits that actually surfaces. So a lot of those other areas, such as, for example, user-centric approach, even though it reduces time on specific teaching tasks and so on, we do have to highlight them. And so part of the plan is that a lot of the users and the clients base, they would actually ask us, do you have instructional videos or micro videos that would just demonstrate these changes? And so as part of the deployment plan, we always recommend them to have a think about those particular considerations first and moving on from there. So you can see from here, a lot of the lists here, I'm sure most of you have already probably thought about, simply because of that you may have already played with Learn Ultra and had a look at a lot of these particular specifications. But I think the most important thing is that when I talk about the use cases later on, I'll highlight some of the key ones here in the context of 2 clients that we've worked with, and then hopefully these will become a much more clearer set of considerations for everyone to analyze. So moving on, we'll talk a little bit more about the technical considerations.
So I touched on this with the move to SaaS yesterday, and for those that I've been out to see, there is a lot of technical considerations in the move to Ultra. There is a fundamental change of the platform. There's a fundamental change in the way that the APIs work with the system. So there is a number of things that an institution or adopter of Ultra needs to consider when it comes to things like your integrations, the way you use your building blocks, your course tools, things like that. Ultra is based on using a lot more LTI, and as the standards build out more, the power of LTI becomes such a great asset to be able to plug in these third-party web tools to build your own LTIs and extend the environment in such a way that you can interact with the gradebook, you can interact with aspects of the LMS, but still provide tool capability that's developed in your own enterprise preferred application stack. So LTI really does afford that. We have moved away from any of the SOAP stuff to REST. So especially if you're looking at using the Ultra course experience, you will need to make those changes and convert a lot of your SOAP integrations to REST. There is a wealth of information on the community.blackboard.com site that can help developers or help your teams actually convert that information. There's links to sample code. There's a lot of resources there that talk about how to do those type of things. There is also, there's a lot out there that have created a wealth of rich HTML. And those of you that have had a play with Ultra have probably seen that the editor's not quite as extensive, I'll put it that way, as the original course experience. So there is a number of reasons for that. And firstly, 9.1 was, one of my colleagues said you could run a battleship with it. But there was a lot of issues in terms of it. It had all this flexibility to create content, but then academics and people would create content that would then break the system or break the experience there in terms of responsive design, in terms of accessibility and things like that. So what we've done is we've swung that pendulum back over to this side to actually really reset that experience and start to build on a tool set that really does provide accessible material, provides responsive material out of the gate there. But there is a number of ways that organisations can also continue to use that custom HTML that they've developed. So you might have seen this morning, Danny Munnelly was talking about their H5P integration. Now h5p.com has an integration that works into, an LTI integration that works into Learn Ultra. So you can create your H5P elements there, you can create a library of resources that you can use for your learning designers and your academics to be able to create and build out content pages that have a lot of those rich HTML5 objects. You also have the ability to build your own or use your own responsive design framework and build those HTML files or little packages and put them in the content system and link to them and bring them up in the peak panel there. So you can still build out your rich HTML there and do those sort of things. Or if you want to, you can use, this is built just using the standard editor in Learn Ultra. So you can still build fairly rich, engaging sites with lots of colour, lots of images, videos, all those sort of things within Learn Ultra. So what we're going to quickly do now, and I'll hand back to Alex. He just wants to have a chat about the case studies that he's dealt with and how he's supported some of the clients adopting Ultra.
Yeah, so I just wanted to quickly step through two particular case studies. Each of these represent a different type of client base. So they're both in Asia. So the first one is a corporate body, but then they have a very strong investment in education as well. So they're an eye hospital. They look after everything around eye care. They're apparently the first institution in India that actually is offered doctorate in ophthalmology. And what they wanted to do was that they actually wanted to drive that curriculum further by giving their students and practicum students actually a lot better learning experience. So the way that they do it is, in fact, they have a 7-story building. Every single floor is designed for a different specialty, and every single intern has to go through every floor and with every single teacher with patients in order for them to tick off all the competencies. And so it becomes really difficult if you want to track that by paper, because patient needs are paramount. So therefore, sometimes there may be sudden changes in conditions in which they have to just rush off and take the patient elsewhere. Where's the time for paper-based administration and checking off competencies? And so what they wanted to do was they wanted to actually leverage something that would help them bring all of that out in a much more streamlined fashion. And so what they've done is that they actually wanted to digitize the entire process. And the challenge is that they don't have a lot of experience with LMSs. And so what we then did was that we deployed their Learn Ultra solution. So they're a brand new greenfield client. And they were based in a headquarters called Parenthamana, which is actually a very, very tiny town hidden inside forests. And so in terms of technical infrastructure, they don't actually have a lot of room for improvements, but fortunately the Learn Ultra system itself was able to provide them with that solution, and we gave them training for 2 weeks and provided them course development guidance. and they actually saved quite a significant amount of time from the administration side of things. The students loved it because they no longer have to actually go and fill in paper-based reports. And they've now started to acquire a whole host of tablets because they want to use the Blackboard app on it, so then they can just tick off the things that they've done and check off the competencies. And so we're into full deployment mode now, simply within about 6 months of actual piloting phase. Now, the second case study is a large institution in Asia, well-established university, 40,000 students. They are a very experienced user of 9.1. And despite the fact they have really high-powered users in there, as in people that are using Blackboard 9.1 probably better than I do, they do still have an adoption issue. So new academics, sessional academics coming in, they don't have that capacity or time in order to learn about how to use the most experienced 9.1 courses. And so what happens is that they wanted to actually then decide, they moved to Learn Ultra for a dual deployment mode. So new academics, sessional academics, they give them a lower barrier in order to actually start using the LMS by using Learn Ultra, get them on board with professional development, and over time they would have a phased approach. So then those who are starting to become more experienced and they want to do more with the actual platform, they give them a Learn 9.1 course view inside their LMS. And so within about 3 months of deployment, they've anecdotally already told me that the adoption rate has actually already gone up to the point where in the last 3 years, on average, it never rose above a certain threshold value. This has already been exceeded within about 3 months of deploying Learn Ultra. So this is another example that Learn Ultra can be both beneficial to existing users and also new clients as well. So moving forward, we have a list of useful resources.
Okay, while we've got that up on screen there, and you would have heard this morning from Danny that change management is a big ticket item. Okay, so being able to engage with your academics, engage with your users of the system there, and being able to communicate the change, it's ongoing. And especially with Ultra, because it's on continuous delivery. Every month we're going to be releasing little bits and pieces out to the platform there. So change management is just a part of life now. It's going to be continual, and we're going to be continually pushing out communication to our users and our stakeholders in there. So there's a wealth of resources, free resources. I know, Blackboard, free resources. So there is a wealth of resources out there for you to access communication and adoption toolkits, other experiences from other institutions on the community side, all those sort of things. We are running a series of Ultra days, and some of our clients, we are running specific university days with them to help them gain awareness and run through that period of Ultra. But I really wanted to just put it back out to you for questions and just sort of, what are your concerns, what are your hesitations, what sort of things might you have that you want to take the opportunity at this point in time to ask. We have not just myself and Alex, we do actually have a number of people from Blackboard here in the room, so I'm sure if I can't answer it or Alex can't answer it, we can throw to some of them. So I just want to take the moment now to just open up and say, fire away. Zarina.
How close is course sites to the current Ultra?
So course sites is it's on our production release. I'm looking up the back there, I'm getting nods. It's on our production release of Learn Ultra, so it will follow that release cycle. So it's on continuous delivery, so it'll get updated and all those sort of things. So you can play with it, you can do all those sort of things. It's actually a very good tool to go and sign up and play in those ones, and you can invite people in and they can have a look at the course as well.
You mentioned the HTML5 integration with Ultra. Do you have that with the classic?
The H5P integration is just LTI, so I must admit I haven't tested it with original, so it should work as an LTI integration into that, so there shouldn't be any problem there. Now, Gordon, you had your hand up there before?
I just wanted to speak specifically with regards to the actual tool gaps and how Blackboard's actually managing that.
Sorry,
the tool gaps. There's a lot of functional comparisons between the original environment and the Ultra environment.
Yeah.
And we know that the fundamentals of the application in Ultra is completely different, workflow-wise and so forth. But there's a lot of staff that still use old tools. First of all, is Blackboard actually going to have a comparative analysis between, the Ultra experience versus original? What you actually intend to actually bring across and what you don't?
So the short answer is yes, we do have a roadmap that we share with clients or talk through with clients there that have a greater detail of what tools are being released and when they're being released and how does that track across. You may have heard of the term, and Gordon, we've spoken about this a lot, as in feature parity between the two systems. And the reality with that design is that we're probably not going to have feature parity in that this tool, click this particular way with this particular configuration item is going to be in Ultra. So there may be changes there with the translation of that tool over into Ultra. And we take the opportunity when we bring a tool into the Ultra interface there to have a look at the workflows there and the UX designers that are out there gaining feedback. So if you think about the self and peer assessment tool, what do we need to change with that when we move that over into Ultra? How is that going to be different? Is it just going to be a configuration item when you create an assessment piece that has a tick box that says, okay, I want to create this as a self and peer assessment? Or do we have a separate tool, and how does that interface work, and how does it interplay with all the existing tools in the system there? So, I know that's a sort of a meandering answer to that question, but that's sort of the process that we take in terms of translating those tools across. Yes, there is a longer term roadmap that we can discuss with clients and go through when a feature is going to be released. And there's also I'll say a high level comparative document that sort of says, okay, well, here's the tool in 9.1. Is it going to end up in Ultra? Yes or no? And what might it mainly do in Ultra when we do that? So happy to share that with you. Donna.
I was just wondering, I noticed that you've got text wrapped around an image of your help page still, but I was wondering if we're ever going to be able to do that in Ultra, and what was the reason for not allowing text wrapping in an image?
That's a good question. I don't know if Jim or Wade could answer that question for me. Yes, I can.
It's about text wrapping around an image. Why did it not happen?
So you're asking when you have an image within a rich text editor and you wanted the text to flow around the
Like
image.
on that, like on your help website,
So-
or any.
So that was just a design decision that we made in terms of a couple of things. One is in some interfaces within Ultra, we actually constrain the width of the text so that we can try to actually help, because long line lengths in some situations, it can be very difficult to scan and kind of go to the next line.
Yeah.
But then also it's around responsive design.
Right, so
So-
you can fit it in
And so really what we're trying, you've seen probably in a lot of the designs, there's stacking going on. The main thing is that as you then kind of scrunch the screen down horizontally, you're still going to be able to have that stacking and text and images and so forth work well at those very, very small form factors. If you have wrapping in some cases, it can actually lead to really, really thin text, which can be problematic if you're on a
that makes
smartphone.
sense. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Jim. Di, you had a question?
Sorry, it's a quick one. Just about the open education platform that was like the Blackboard MOOC platform, which is not course sites. That doesn't seem to be an Ultra as yet. Is that on the planning for that to be moved as well?
So, open education, I believe, is on the roadmap to port to Ultra. We're working through a number of things there because there was a number of additional tools, building blocks and things to actually create that MOOC environment for 9.1 that we're converting and translating across so that it can be fully ultrified. And there's a number of considerations there too for those clients that are actually currently running MOOCs in a 9.1 environment and things like that. So it is sitting on our SaaS environment there, so it is part there. We're just working on that at the moment. Okay. For anyone else that has questions, because we might wrap it up there, feel free to contact me. Thank you to Alex for presenting as well, and thank you for taking the time to come along.